All right. Hello, hello, hello. Happy Saturday evening or Sunday morning or afternoon, wherever you are. We are going to get started right away. And today, I am excited to be talking about why learning to sit through a trigger before you react. Why learning to be able to feel yourself being triggered by something, to feel yourself being having that emotional reaction, that deep internal sense of, I gotta do this thing, or this is hopeless, I'm never gonna get what I want, I feeling anxiety, feeling depression, feeling that impulse that I have to go and do this thing, and if I don't, things are going to be really bad. And learning not to react right away. Learning how to feel our way through that, how to allow ourselves to experience a trigger, to experience that adrenaline spike, that depression spike, and work our way through it is one of the most powerful things you will ever do for yourself. Not because we want to learn how to tolerate things that are painful. Not because our triggers are wrong. Not because our actions don't matter. Not because we aren't supposed to take action. And not because, like I say, our emotions are wrong or that we're feeling something that isn't real. It's because there's more information in reality on the other side of feeling our trigger that will actually empower us to change our lives in meaningful ways that we aren't going to get when we act on the trigger itself. Okay? So this is not me sitting here telling you, learn how to be okay in things that are painful. Learn how to not react for the sake of not reacting. Yes, this is not about becoming the stone Buddha. This is not about becoming the monk who can set himself on fire and not cry out. That is taking this concept way too far. All right? This is about understanding that, yes, there are going to be times and there are going to be places where we're triggered and where we think we need to do something. We think we need to act. We think we are seeing reality clearly, and we feel that the conclusions we are drawing are completely reasonable and, like I say, a clear, unbiased assessment of reality, and they aren't, and it isn't. And so the actions we're taking that seem so reasonable and so logical to us are not actually empowered action. They are not actions that are taking us closer to what we want. They are not actions that are helping us to evolve our lives, but rather, again, it's something we learned in childhood, it's something we learned in early adulthood as a coping mechanism, as a scapegoat, as a self-sabotage, as some way of dealing with a pain that we don't actually understand. So pausing, taking in more information, not acting, retraining our nervous systems is a step on the path of seeing reality for how it really is. Okay, so when we are triggered in this life, meaning when we're going along in our day and then someone says something or someone does something and or we think of something, we have some sort of experience, we have some sort of exterior stimuli or interior stimuli that causes us to go into a state of adrenaline. Okay? So again, first things first, becoming aware that we're in a triggered state is something that most of us are going to have to practice, because many of us live in triggered states all the time, or on such a frequent basis that we have a hard time recognizing that we're even in a triggered state. Okay? And again, when we're triggered, what we're going to notice in ourselves is either that desire to engage in whatever coping mechanism we have. Okay, so substance that we want to take in, and looking to hyper control some area of our lives. So looking to hyper control our diets, our bodies, our relationships, our jobs, our money situation. Looking to where our brains get hyper focused on if I could just fix or perfect this area of my life. If I could just get the dream job. If I could just fix the relationship. If I could just find the best place to live. If I could just get the right neighbors or the right friends or the right community. If I could just have the perfect body. Right? All my pain, all my happiness, all my pain would go away and all my happiness would exist. So when we start to get into thoughts like this, we can notice that we're triggered. Okay? We may not know why we're triggered. And again, it may seem completely reasonable to us. It's going to seem completely reasonable to us that if we had this perfect thing, we would be happy. And that this is the reason we are unhappy. We don't recognize this as a trigger because in society, we're told that our unhappiness is because of these things. And we are completely convinced that if we could just perfect this one area of our lives, that we would feel how we want to feel. Because that's simple. That simplifies things. That takes the complexity out of life. It takes the nuance out of life. It removes the idea that we were traumatized, that we have emotional things going on that we may not even be aware of. It removes, like I say, the gray from life. It gives us this sense of hope and freedom and peace that all of our unhappiness and everything that's bothering us just comes down to this one thing. And even if we've been trying to fix that one thing in our lives for 40 years, the fact that there's still some level of hope in our minds, some level of, yeah, but if I just did this, I will get it. If I just try this diet, if I just try this thing, if I just make friends with these people, if we just move here, if we just do this, all my problems will go away and I'll be happy. Right? We have to remember that we're giving ourselves that when we, on a real level, don't actually know why we're unhappy. We don't know why we're triggered. We don't know what we want. And this is the real reality of it, right? Most of us have our coping mechanisms and our scapegoats because it gives us a sense of security, that our pain is going to be easier to fix, that our discomfort is going to be easier to solve than it actually is. Okay? So when we are in a state where we're in our crazy eight, okay? So all of us are going to have these crazy eights in our lives where we have this area of our life that we hyper focus on and we place all of our hope and all of our happiness on when this thing changes, I will be happy. And we micro focus on that. We go our adrenaline route. We get triggered by something and we go hardcore into the diet. We go hardcore into the how am I going to get myself out there, the hardcore into the relationship thing, the hardcore into the coping. Okay? This also applies to methods of distraction. Right? When we can't get off social media, when we sit there and just binge watch Netflix, when all we want to do is take in gossip about our friends and our neighbors and everything that's going on with everyone around us, when we are like doing these things, like I say, binge eating, drinking, whatever it is, that numb us. This is the same thing. So when we're feeling triggered, when we're being triggered, we're either hyper stimulated, we're going into manic action, the new diet, the new workout regime, the new plan, the new I'm going to do all this, okay, we're selling everything, we're moving, We're hyper or hypo. I'm just going to check out. I'm just going to leave. I'm not going to have conversations. I'm going to be on the computer. I'm going to be on my phone. I'm going to be on Netflix. I'm going to be consuming some sort of substance, doing whatever it takes to shut things down. That's the crazy 8 cycle. Okay? So when we're triggered, all of us go into a crazy 8 of some sort. We hyper focus on some area of our life. If this gets fixed, everything will be better. We go manic into fixing it. This is different. This time is different. I know I've done this 100 million times before, but I forget all that. And I'm completely convinced that this time is different. This time I really am going to accomplish it. This time I really am going to get it. And it's going to make me happy. It's going to work. Everything else didn't work last time because I was just doing it wrong. It's going to work this time. So I'm going to do the same thing I've always done, slightly different. So the slightly different diet, the slightly different self-help book, the slightly different way of promoting myself, the slightly different way of trying to manipulate my partner, the slightly different way of packing up all my things. Yes? Same thing done slightly differently, expecting different results, which eventually leads to that burnout that we all experience. When we don't get the results we want, life doesn't change, we get bored from the discipline, we don't do it, we let it go, we get triggered again, stimulates us right back into the crazy 8. Okay, I'm just going to take control of this area of my life. Or, like I said, we get triggered and then we check out, we numb out, we do whatever it takes to distance ourselves from life. So yeah, Maria says, lately I am really addicted to social media or Netflix. Anything that distracts me from myself, I feel so stuck. Exactly. Right? So what's really going on here is we are feeling triggered. Something is coming up for us, or many, many things are coming up for us in our reality that we don't understand, we feel overwhelmed by, we feel afraid of. Like I say, we don't know how to explain, we don't know what's going on. And rather than having the tools to sort through these things, to figure out what's really going on for us, to figure out what we really want, to figure out what we really don't want, and what it's going to take to create the new thing that we desire. We all learned how to be manic or depressive. Our nervous systems are trained, right, to be manic or depressive. Because, again, in our childhoods, when we experience trauma, when we experience things that we didn't understand, not being able to get our needs met, we were in pain, we didn't know why we were in pain, we didn't know how to get out. Yes, we were completely reliant upon our caregivers to understand us and meet our needs, and when they didn't, we were hooped. And because we are social beings, and because we are feeling, we learned early on that being approved of, being understood by others, was akin to getting our needs met and being loved and surviving. We also were children, so did not have complex reasoning skills. We were not able to take in the complexity of why we were in pain, the complexity of what was going on with us, and use that to understand what was going on and what we needed in order to feel better. We were simplified, we had to simplify everything down to our child understanding, which was the only thing I have control over is myself. My behavior, the way that I'm acting, and that is how I am controlling how people outside of me respond to me and therefore meet my needs and get rid of my pain. So that's the child view of the world. If something's going wrong, it's the world's job to help me fix it, and if they aren't doing it, I need to change myself. So we all learned methods of self-control, of shame and guilt, of I'm not allowed to be this way because it gets me rejected, and when I'm rejected, my needs might not get met, and so I have to shut these parts of myself down. I have to tolerate things that I don't like. I have to release things that I do want And we become these approval addicts because, again, in childhood, to be approved of is to survive, and to be rejected is to die. So we learn all these ways of being and coping and living that are fundamentally out of alignment with who we are, that are fundamentally out of alignment with how humans work, but that feel good on some level because it's getting us approval, and that approval equals safety to us, to our nervous systems. And then our nervous systems, again, are programmed that when we're in pain and we need help, we cry out, we throw a temper tantrum, because that's maybe how we got love, maybe how we got attention. Maybe the way that we got love and approval and attention was by being quiet and by being reserved and not expressing ourselves. And so we learn early in our childhoods, when I'm feeling anxious and scared and upset, my emotions get me in trouble. My emotions get me rejected. So I'm going to do whatever it takes to tamper these emotions down, because that's a threat now. That's a physical threat to me. Because again, remember, our physical little bodies and our bodies now don't understand the difference between an existential threat, like a true threat, and stress being an actual physical I'm about to die, and stress being mental, stress being emotional, stress being 400 steps away from death. To our bodies, if we're in a state of stress, we're about to die. And we need to do whatever it is we have always done. We need to do whatever it is we've always done, because to our nervous systems, that is what has saved our lives. So again, I understand that we are rational beings and we have thought, and most of us do not identify as being in a state of trauma response where our bodies are taking over and forcing us to do habituated patterns purely because they think, our bodies believe, that is what saved our lives from a physical threat we were about to die from. Most of us don't understand that. We don't identify with that because our storytelling mind, with all of its complexity, from childhood all the way forward, has been rationalizing our behavior, has been rationalizing why doing what we have been doing is the answer. Okay? So we did not go from a complete awareness that I'm in pain because something is out of alignment in my environment. Mom and dad don't understand. That's why I'm in pain. There's something out of alignment with my environment. I'm not getting a need met. I'm not being allowed to grow. I'm not being allowed to express. I'm struggling with understanding something that just happened to me. I was traumatized by something, and I need help understanding. And mom and dad don't get that. That's our trauma. Okay? We don't have an awareness of that. Yes, when we shut down or go manic, our body is trying to protect or save us. Because again, what we learned in our childhoods is that I'm in pain, mom and dad are my saviors. If they don't get it, if they're not validating my pain, if they tell me my pain doesn't exist, if they tell me I'm wrong for my pain, if they blame me for my pain, they're correct. And that means there's something wrong with me that is getting me rejected by these people that I completely depend upon for everything. And therefore, I take their opinion as law because, of course, they're God. In our childhood, our caregivers are God. And they are programming us for what reality is. So this is why I'm saying, we don't even recognize that we are traumatized, that we went through something, that the world didn't make sense to us, we were in pain, and then we didn't get our need met. That is a trauma. We did not get our need for understanding what was going on met. We did not get our need for expression met. We did not get our needs physical, mental, emotional met in that time, and rather we were taught that our needs didn't exist, that our needs were wrong, that our expression was incorrect, that we were bad and wrong for doing what we were doing, that we were failing. We were taught all of these things. And we took that in as just being how it is. And then however we responded in that moment, when we were in that state of physical stress, gets programmed into our bodies as being the thing that saved our lives. Because your body did not know. Okay? Again, please take a minute for this. Your body did not know that you expressing and your mom being, that's too loud, be quiet. And that hurt. Because that was genuine for you. That was your true expression being shut down. So there was going to be pain in that. And her rejection of your authentic self, this thing that felt good to you, was an existential crisis. Because if she's rejecting you, this thing feels good. This is who I really am. This is growth. This is true self-expression. This is real life. This is life. This is what is required for life. Being myself, expressing myself, growing myself. That feels good. But it's being rejected by my caregiver, who I depend upon for everything. And if they reject me, I die. Trauma. Your body goes into lockdown, and you learn to not talk. You learn to shut down your emotion. Every time now you feel like squealing at something, and you get slapped at, you get told no enough times, that starts to initiate a panic response inside of you every single time you want to squeal. Because now, this natural thing you want to do is contradicting your survival. So if you learned how to stop that by distracting yourself, by numbing, that's going to be what you do every single time your natural self wants to express in a way that got you shut down in your childhood. You are going to be in a survival response. Your body is saying, if we do this, we're going to die. That's a threat. So now anytime I feel like doing that, when I numb and therefore don't express, I saved my life. And then every time we act on that, we reinforce to our nervous systems that that is what saved our lives. That numbing and distracting. So we didn't yell, and therefore we did not get rejected. Saved my life. Because the yelling out was a threat to my survival. So if we learned that crying got us rejected, before we're even cognitively aware that we want to cry, we will already be in our scapegoat. We'll already be in our coping mechanism. We'll already be in our numbing before we're even aware of it. Because it's so deeply wired into our nervous system that crying equals death. Because if crying got us rejected, whatever it takes to not cry is now the thing that our bodies think save our lives. This is so deep that, and like I said, we are not going to have any awareness of it. Most of us are not going to have any awareness of it. We all think we're the one person who's addicted to the thing for no reason. We don't have trauma, we don't have pain, because we're not aware of it. We don't see the story. Our minds have created something that makes the reality make sense, that gets rid of that trauma, because that trauma is all cognitive dissonance. That trauma is all, I either have to admit to myself that my caregivers were wrong, and that I'm not safe, because if our caregivers were wrong, if what they were teaching us is untrue, that's an existential crisis in and of itself. And we have to recognize that. that as we start to sit with our triggers, we're going to start to notice more and more and more how we have this deep, deep, deep-seated fear that comes up as we start to recognize and truly feel inside the reality that our caregivers were incorrect. And that's going to be really scary. Most of us will hold on to our conditioning for our entire lives, no matter how painful it is, because it feels safer to hold on to our conditioning and just continue to try to fix ourselves and change ourselves, or just be miserable and keep doing what everyone else is doing and staying with our coping mechanisms and our scapegoats and our thing that we think if we fix this it'll be better or whatever, to simplify things. Because the true reality is, my caregivers were wrong, they taught me reality wrong, and now I have to learn a whole bunch of different things that I don't know how to learn, because we didn't learn how to learn. I have to feel all this trauma and let it go through my body, and that's how I'm going to learn, and that doesn't feel good. So every day when I wake up, I feel like shutting out and distracting myself. It's really hard for me to know what to do with myself. How can I start to set myself free from this? So that's what we're talking about today. So again, first things first is to recognize that we're being triggered. When we want to numb, when we want to distract, when we want to make all of our pain about something. This area of my life, if I could just fix it, if I just had this, I'd be happy. If we just didn't have this, I'd be happy. Right? When we're wanting to simplify, we're triggered. We're triggered when we go into our coping mechanism. And like I say, learning to even recognize our coping mechanisms, our self-sabotage, the things that we're scapegoating onto, right? Our trauma responses. When we lash out at someone for their behavior, when we get really triggered or bothered by how someone else is, and I can't be happy if they're like that. I can't be safe if they're doing that. When we have that internal like I have to act now. Like if I don't respond to this right here, right now. Panic. Learning to even recognize that we are triggered is the first step. And that's challenging. Okay, because like I said, it's going to make all the sense in the world to us that we're reacting the way that we're reacting. We're not seeing why we are triggered and why we are acting the way that we're acting. We're not actually aware. So long, everyone always says, I know why I'm doing this. I know why I'm binging. I know why I'm distracting myself. I know. I just don't know why I can't get myself to stop. And I always say, if you really knew why you were doing what you were doing, you would be able to feel your way through it. And you would be able to meet the need that's being met through your coping, self-sabotage, and scapegoats in a higher way right now. There is no becoming not something. So this is the next thing. The first thing is becoming aware, and that's practice. When am I in a state of adrenaline? When are my actions motivated by, I have to do this. I have to do this right now. I have to go reply. I have to say the thing. I have to go on the diet. I have to get on the bike. I have to draw this thing. Create this thing. Put this out. Talk to this person. Okay? I have to. I have to. I have to. I have to right now. And there's all these stories in your head of what's going to happen if you don't. There's all this trigger and all this narrative about what it will mean about you and what it will mean about life if you don't follow through. That's a trigger. Or, I just don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to be with myself. I don't want to feel what I'm feeling. I just want to check out. I just want to numb. I just want to run away. Both of these things tell us we're triggered. Okay? So that's the first step. Second step, always, 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 compassion. I'm triggered. I may not know why I'm triggered. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I need. I don't know where it's coming from. I have all my stories. right? That trigger of I have to do this right now. I have to go. I have to. Because stories, and all these stories make perfect sense to me. Compassion for that. Because whatever your story is right now, it's not true. I can tell you that. It feels terrible when you really tune into your body. That feeling of anxiety, that feeling of trigger, that feeling of I have to do this thing or else feels terrible because it's not true. All of us completely believe our stories. All of us. You are not the exception. You are going to believe that your story makes perfect sense, and here's all of your experience that backs it up. If I don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And it's happened before. I've experienced it, or I've seen other people go through it. And it really does hurt. And it really is awful. Don't tell me my story is wrong. It hurts because it's true. And it's true, and it's true, and it's true. Yes, you're going to have that, just like everybody else. Your story makes perfect sense to you. I get it. Okay? That's not unique. That is how this works. Your mind has come up with all sorts of stories, and your perception has been filtered to only see the things that align with your story, that align with your conditioning. And you have filtered out all these other things that contradict it. Because that was cognitive dissonance. Your brain didn't know how to bring that into reality. It hurts because it's not true. And your mind has filtered out all this stuff. So you think your experience, and you think your perception of your experience is, again, a clear, unbiased view of what happened. And it isn't. It's a very biased view of your conditioning, filtering out a whole bunch of things and exaggerating a whole bunch of things to keep your worldview stable. It's called cognitive dissonance, confirmation bias. Our minds are looking to reinforce what we already believe. They are telling us only the stories that match our current worldview. Because again, this is why people who are going on the awakening path look and feel crazy a lot of the time. Because they are literally going through the process of having their foundational perception of how reality works, their foundational perception of themselves, their minds, what is right and wrong, what is good and bad, what is beneficial and isn't, how reality functions, is being turned upside down. And that's why some people don't make it through the other side. They just go nuts. Because it's a big deal. And our minds and our bodies are going to resist it at all costs. Because it's scary. When we don't have our foundations, when we don't know, but at least I have this. It says in the Bible that for the Son of God, there is no place to rest my head. And I believe what that means is that when we're really on this path of wanting to be awake and to know reality, that what is going to be continually happening is a re-understanding, a deeper understanding, a shake-up of whatever we think this is how reality works. It's going to be taken deeper. It's going to be shifted, right? When we have trauma, when we have pain, we have to understand that's us moving against how reality works. That's the bottom line of it. Pain means we are moving against the structure. We don't understand the structure of ourselves or of reality. And we all think we have an understanding. But every place in our lives where there is pain, that is us living out of alignment with the structure. And it's more complex than we want it to be. And therefore, there's no place to rest your head. There's no place of like, okay, I got it. It's more, we need to start to find our stability and our security in the growth process, right? And I talk about this a lot. The letting go of the idea of heaven. Heaven being that place where I have it all figured out, and so therefore I don't have pain anymore. No. Heaven is when we know how to handle pain. And that's what this is about. When we understand that pain is always going to be a part of this. Because there's always going to be something to learn. There's always going to be something that we're breaking ourselves against because we're pushing our limits of our understanding. We want to be continually pushing the limits of our understanding. And if we're not actively doing that for ourselves, life is going to do it for us. Because that is what is required to be alive, growth. And what is required for growth is information. New information. New awareness. Something we didn't know before. And so many of us have a learning trauma. That to learn something new means I was wrong, bad, stupid, and lacking before. So we're constantly trying to just reinforce what we already know. And prove that we're right to the outside world so that we can then get approval and then feel secure and safe. Like all of our needs are going to be met. And that's, again, the child version of reality. That if everyone outside of me agrees with me, then that's how reality is. I'll get my needs met and I'll be safe and happy. And no more pain will happen. That's not reality. Real reality is when I'm in pain, there's something to learn. When I am triggered, this means my version of reality is out of sync with real reality. And I'm going to have to go through the process of existential crisis to figure out what that is. And I am going to feel my way there. Because again, the mind has already figured out why everything you're doing makes perfect sense. The mind already has all these stories that are telling you that your trigger is true, that if you don't act on it, you're going to die, and all of the reasons why everything you're doing makes perfect sense, or it's come up with a story of you're doing it just for this silly reason, and if you could just control yourself, you'd stop. You're just weak-willed. You're just undisciplined. You're just lazy. No. You have needs that are not being met. You have expression you're not allowed to express. You have ways you are suppressing yourself and not meeting your own needs because you don't know how or you've been shamed. And that's why you're doing what you're doing. So that's why the second step is compassion. Compassion, 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 compassion. Noticing you're feeling triggered. You're manic, you're depressive. That's a trigger. You have to do something or you're hopeless, you're never going to figure it out. Anxiety, depression. You're triggered. Second step, I don't know why I'm triggered. I don't know what I need. I have my stories. All of this that it makes perfect sense to me. It's all coming up and I have all this reasons for it. This is my view of reality. Okay. Compassion. As much as I want to believe my stories, because it gives me something solid. Even if my story is awful. Even if my story means I will never be happy. Because my story is this thing is broken in me. I will never have what I want. The universe doesn't want me to have it. I've tried it a million times and I've never gotten there. It's hopeless. Or my story is if I could just fix this thing, if I could just do this thing, I just need to do it worked before. I had it for a little bit and that was really great and I just need to get it back and I just fell off track and I don't know what's wrong with me, right? We want to believe that story. Because that story solidifies our view of reality. And we want to believe the story more than we want to say, I'm triggered, I'm in pain, and I don't know why. It's bigger than what I think. There's more to the story here. If I really understood what was going on with me, I would have a solution that actually is a permanent fix that actually improves my life and takes me out of this experience, because I'm going to learn fundamentally why this experience is happening and how to shift myself to a new way. So if I don't have that, if my actions are not shifting my life so that it's actually different, where I don't have this experience anymore, that means my reaction to my trigger is false. If I'm winding up in the same situation over and over and over again, I don't understand why I'm being triggered, and I don't understand what to do about it. So we have recognizing we're triggered, we have compassion for ourselves, and then admitting to ourselves that we don't know what's going on. Our stories make perfect sense to us, our actions make perfect sense to us, but if we are in a crazy 8 where we're experiencing the same thing over and over, we don't understand. And we have to admit that to ourselves. And then phase 4 is the hardest phase, where we recognize we're triggered, we see what we want to do about it, and instead of that, we set a timer for 5, 10, 15 minutes, and we sit with the physical sensations that are going to be happening while we're in trauma. Because it doesn't matter how much we mentally gymnastic or figure ourselves out. We have to understand that our bodies are in a state of trauma. Our bodies are in a state of trigger. Our nervous systems are programmed, again, that whatever we usually do when we're triggered is a life-saving thing. Our bodies believe that if we don't go tell that person they're wrong, if we don't go people please, if we don't get on the diet, if we don't go drink, if we don't start scrolling social media, we will die. That's what our nervous systems believe. That's what our bodies believe. And when we engage in that behavior, and then we live, we just prove to our nervous systems and to our bodies that that behavior saved our life. Does this make sense? The reason you feel so drawn to it is because when you're triggered, your body thinks you're about to die. When you're about to do something, again, so subconscious, that got you rejected by your caregivers, your body thinks you're going to die. When you're about to not do something that was expected of you, your body thinks you're going to die. When you experience pain on any level, in any way in your life, you might get a stomach ache. You get yelled at by your boss. You want something and you don't have it. Any pain that you don't understand why that pain is happening, you're triggered. Your body thinks you're going to die. And then you go do your coping mechanism. You go do your scapegoat. You go do your behavior. You live. It feels a little bit better. It numbs the pain. Your body thinks that behavior saved your life. So now, anytime you're in pain, anytime there's a part of you that wants to express that got you rejected, anytime you want to not do something that you were completely conditioned you have to do, your mind is not going to tell you, I'm in pain and I don't know why. I'm about to express something in a way that got me rejected by my caregivers. I feel pain about doing something. I really don't want to do something, but I was trained that this is what I have to do to be approved of. Your brain doesn't tell you that story. Your brain says, go binge. Your brain says, go people please. Your brain says, scroll. It skips the whole story that you're in pain. It skips the story of this is who I want to be and this is what I want to do, or this is what I don't want to be and I don't want to do. It skips all that. You don't have any cognitive awareness of that. Your brain has created a short circuit, a life-saving short circuit, that anytime you're triggered by these things, pain, wanting to express something, not wanting to express something. There's a shortcut that happens, that you're already in your behavior before you even know that you were feeling that. This is why people are so confused about themselves. Because you're not cognitively aware. Your brain isn't telling you that story. It might tell you, okay, if I don't do this, no one's going to love me. Or if I don't do this, I'm going to get fired. Or if I don't do this, da-da-da-da-da. And that's sort of it. And it makes perfect sense to you again. But in real reality, you're always going to realize that whatever you think is going to happen if you don't do your thing, or if you do your thing, isn't actually reality, because you're an adult now. You could get rejected by everyone and still survive. You could lose this job and get another job. Your boss could hate you and you lose this marriage, get another marriage. You'll be fine by yourself. The real reality of what is actually going on and how threatened you are by what you think is going to happen if you be your real self is not real. But we're going to figure that out later. So you're going to first be with the physical sensations that come up when you're feeling triggered and you don't act on your behavior, because this is how you reprogram the nervous system. When you don't act on your trigger for 5, 10, 15 minutes, your body is going to react as though you're going to die. Okay? It's going to be so intense. This is why so many of us feel completely helpless to not do our behaviors. Because the emotional intensity that comes up when we don't engage is so uncomfortable. And because we don't understand it, we don't know why it's happening. It doesn't make any sense. It feels very out of context. That it's just traumatizing. It's a traumatizing trauma. But we have to think of it like vomiting. Like you've taken in a poison and your body is like the less of the two evils right now is to expel it. So even though vomiting is like a real trauma on the body, it's better than keeping the poison in. So when you are triggered and you don't act on your behavior, you need to think of it like vomiting. Like you have to let that run through your body. And then on the other side of that, because what there's going to be is there's going to be this climb in intensity. You're going to feel it in your body. You're going to feel like your heart's going to beat out of your chest. You're going to feel like you're going to have a heart attack. You might feel like you're going to vomit. You're going to have just pure panic. All these stories in your head. If I don't do this, if I don't do this, you're going to have all that. And then there's going to reach a peak where you think, okay, wow, I am going to die. You might feel like you're dissociating. You might feel like all these things. And then the anxiety is going to start to come down. The desire to do the thing is going to come down. There's going to be a peak, and then there's going to be a dip. And that is retraining the nervous system. When you get through that, you just prove to your body you didn't die. I was triggered, I was threatened, I didn't do my behavior, and yet I still lived. Then we can start to make some progress. Okay? But unless and until we start working on the physical level of allowing ourselves to feel that trigger and move through to the other side, it is going to continue to reinforce our perceptions of reality, our stories, our scapegoats, all of our things, so then we're never going to be able to see reality for how it really is. Because what you're doing in your trigger is not in alignment with reality. It all makes perfect sense to you. Your mind has come up with stories. It's all this, yes. But it's not reality. And the only way to start to figure out what reality actually is to first physically ride through this. Prove to your body you don't die. And then that's going to open up your consciousness when you're on the other side in a state of relative safety. Of like, okay, I got through that trigger, I didn't die. Now I can start to question reality. What's really going on here? What triggered me? What did I think was going to happen if I didn't do my thing? Okay, well, look, I didn't do it. I'm still alive. And then we're going to start to recognize how much of our triggered state is us being in child psychology. I am victim to the people around me. I have no control over my reality. I don't understand how things work, and if people don't save me or approve of me, I'm going to die. We're going to have all of that. So learning to ride through a trigger is the first step in actually figuring out where your perception of reality is wrong and right. Because a trigger is always incorrect. A trigger is always incorrect. We have to ride through to the other side. We have to physically get through it. And then we can start to say, what do I need? What do I want? What don't I want? What's really going on here? All the questioning work from all of my perception videos. That's where we are capable of doing that. You see what I'm saying? But riding through the trigger, if we don't do that, our minds are convinced of what we already believe. Our perception is filtered. We're in a state of trauma and stress. We cannot see reality for how it is. On the other side, when the body has gotten through that, then we can start to feel, okay, this thought I'm feeling doesn't feel good. And I'm not in a panic state. So I can question it. I can question my reality over here. We can't question our reality when we're in trauma. We can't question our reality when we're in trigger. It's too much. We can't do any questioning work that's going to actually change our perception of reality until we feel safe. So we have to ride through our triggers. And then we can question our perceptions. Then we can challenge our stories. Then we can feel when something feels painful and say, okay, I'm willing to explore that I might be wrong because I'm in a safe place. I'm loving and accepting myself, and that's that. So what do I do if I can't control my thoughts in all my meditations, even though I've been doing it for a long time? Feels like I'm not getting better. Exactly. Go into your body. Practice feeling feelings. So what this means is don't think about your feelings, okay? So anxiety, depression, anger, that's not a feeling. What you want to start to practice in your meditations is sitting, going into your body, and describing body sensations to yourself. So a body sensation is tingling in my chest, tension in my belly, tension in my shoulders. Your new meditation is not about trying to stop thoughts, because you're never going to stop your thoughts. Your thoughts are always going to be happening. Your new meditation is getting into your body. So, what do my toes feel like? Sensation. Numb, cold, tingling, hot. What do my feet feel like? And you're going to do a body scan. Just however long that takes, 5 or 10 minutes. Body scan, sensation. So again, anxiety is not a feeling. Depression is not a feeling. Inadequate is not a feeling. Those are stories. You're going to be practicing feeling body sensations, embodying your body. And that's your new meditation. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Notice what you're feeling. Describe what you're feeling. And then notice and witness the stories. Just those two things. Sensations are feelings. Cold, warm, light, heavy, numb, tingling, shooting. Anxiety and depression are stories. They may be correct stories, but they're not feeling. And we don't know what they're trying to tell us. Because you can think of that as like a complex cluster of feelings. So if every feeling is a piece of information, we can think of every feeling like a word. So that when we get to anxiety, we have a paragraph. But if we haven't dissected each word, we don't know what each word means. That paragraph makes no sense. So we want to start to get into feeling, sensation, the words, so we can pull apart the stories to figure out what reality is. Does this make sense? The emotions are complex stories. If we don't understand the little micro stories, we're not going to understand the complex stories. So we want to practice getting in touch with the little words. What does that feel like? And then you can start to notice in your day, when I am talking with this person, what are the physical sensations I'm feeling? When I am thinking this thought, what are the physical sensations that come up when I think that thought? How does that thought feel? And true is not how it feels. Okay? Familiar is not a feeling. When you really feel in your body, does it feel light? Does it feel heavy? Does it feel contraction? Does it feel expansion? That's, right? And we resist that because our thoughts that we've been telling ourselves over and over again feel true, but what we really mean is that they feel familiar. They feel like they reinforce my story of reality. But it hurts to think that thought. So this is what I'm saying. It doesn't matter how conditioned we are. The moment we actually feel the sensation of what we're thinking, we know right away if it's right or wrong. This doesn't take time. What takes time is our ability to accept it. To accept what our bodies are telling us. To accept what our feelings are telling us. To accept the exploration. Because again, if we think a thought and it's painful, that doesn't necessarily mean its opposite is true. Or that every part of that thought is wrong. We have to dissect it. We have to question the whole thing. But the feelings are already there. But feeling is sensation. Okay, so practice sensation. Practice riding through the trigger. What does it feel like to get all the way through the other side, survive, show your body you didn't die, and now we can start to question things. Now we can start to ask what is real and what is false. But only on the other side. Okay? So that's that. Thank you for being here. If you want more for this, we're going super deep on this, I said, in the mystery school. This is basically what we're all doing in there. Yeah, I think you guys are great. Thank you for listening. And that builds resilience too, right? Exactly. Exactly that. You will start to feel so much stronger, so much more capable, so much more in control of your life when you're not feeling so forced to just respond and in your child view. This is how you start to have your adult perspective. When you ride through a trigger and get to the other side and love yourself, that's your adult perspective. Okay, now what can I do about this? Where's my power? That's where you're going to find it. So it absolutely builds resilience. Thank you for saying that. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next week for our next live. And until then, have a fabulous week. Have a fabulous day. Have a fabulous night. I love you all. Mwah.